Welcome back to the Clayball Podcast. I'm your host, Clay, and I've decided that Clayball needs a little break from the intense conversations we've had the past few episodes. In case you've missed it, the past 4 episodes have been full of intense conversations because, as I've said since the start of this podcast, nothing is off limits at the Clayball Podcast. Last episode, we talked deeply about the situation in the WNBA, where 2 former NBA players have identified as women and declared for the WNBA draft. We talked about that for about an hour, and it was just a crazy episode that was filled with, info about that situation in the WNBA as a whole. 2 episodes ago, we talked about jealousy and its impact within our souls. We connected that idea to baseball and the issues jealousy has on fandom for MLB fans like myself. 3 episodes ago, we talked about politics in sports and what the extent of involvement they should play in the world of sports with athletes using their platforms and teams advertising various political topics. 4 episodes ago, I launched into the second coming of Jesus Christ and the truth about what the Bible says about it and the impact that it has and that it's had on me the last few weeks, I guess, months maybe. And if any of those topics interest you, I highly recommend going through my profile and finding that episode. As this episode is probably going to be a lot more, it is going to be a lot more fun, a lot more relaxed, a lot more calmed down. I had the realization that on top of all the various important topics that I want to get into, I also want to be able to enjoy podcasting. With the fun stuff, the sports stuff that are in the sports world that don't really fit into other topics that I want to talk about. And so, because of that, since I've had a lot of heavy episodes the past few episodes, I decided to make this one fully sports based. I think I'm going to start doing a fully sports episode every 5 or so episodes. So that's like once a month or so. And just in order to keep everyone up to date on the major things and also keep myself up to date on some of the major things going on in the sports world and just try to lighten the mood a little bit. Hopefully that's okay with you. If it's not your podcast, so you have to deal with it. So let's just get into it. Number 1, the first thing, let's just get into football, man. Football season is finally back. We're going to have a huge football episode here soon. And rookie quarterbacks have been balling out in the preseason. I'm going to get into 4 of the ones or I guess 5 of the ones that I've been looking at least with week 1. I didn't watch much of week 2, but I did watch week 1 of the preseason. So let's just start with Fernando Mendoza. He's the first overall pick, right? He had his debut with the Raiders a couple weeks ago. And, obviously being the first overall pick naturally comes with the most pressure and the most interest, right? Raiders fans are expecting him to become an all-time quarterback. They want him to become their new franchise guy at the minimum, and they want him to be all-time great. In his first preseason game, he went 10 for 16, 97 yards, and a touchdown. He looked very, very comfortable running an NFL offense. His pocket presence looked pretty solid. He had multiple high-level passes through tight windows to receivers that were perfectly placed. And just overall, right? Like he was pretty critical on his own performance afterwards, which again makes him seem even better mentally to me because he's not making excuses, all of those types of things that young guys could do in order to make fans stay on their side. Mendoza looked really good. We'll see if it continues throughout the rest of the preseason. I expect it to. I don't even know if he'll play the last game. He looked great again. Basically same stuff in week 2 as far as I know. But the one that interests me the most out of all of the guys I'm going to talk about is actually Carson Beck. I question just based on how well he played in week 1. Yes, he got injured. I know. I'll get into that in a second. But Carson Beck, week 1, had a phenomenal game. He played amazing. How on earth did this guy fall to round 3? He's a 3rd-round pick by the Cardinals who need a quarterback. He's had a complicated college career, and he entered the NFL with plenty to prove. In his first game, he went 15 for 19 for 188 yards and a touchdown. The accuracy of his passes were standing out to me as I was watching. He looked super comfortable in the pocket. He didn't look too overwhelmed, by the NFL level as a whole. And honestly, he created a possible quarterback competition that really wasn't fully expected between Carson Beck and Jacoby Brissett. Those two guys are probably going to have a real quarterback competition at least going on later in the year if Brissett doesn't perform to the level that they want him to perform. Now, the one issue with this now is that Carson Beck got injured. He had a rib injury, and the discomfort that he was having in his ribs just caused him to be day-to-day. But I honestly think it's a precautionary thing. I'm sure the Cardinals saw what they need to see, and they feel good about their draft pick. Now the next question for them is, when do they actually place him in the regular season? At what point do they give him a real chance? Because Jacoby Brissett's not going to be your franchise quarterback. He's just not. Third guy, Ty Simpson. This actually might be the most impressive debut of the group. He went 21 for 25 with 190 yards and 2 touchdown passes. His completion percentage jumps off the charts. He looked super comfortable. He made quick decisions. He had good accuracy, and he made plays outside of just dumping the ball off and getting some yards. He actually made some real plays running and throwing and all the different things that you want in a good quarterback. Did the Rams... This is the question that I keep asking, just thinking about Ty Simpson. I can't believe they took him 13th overall when they literally have the MVP on their team. Did the Rams find their franchise quarterback already, even with Matthew Stafford there? Will Ty Simpson benefit, or will he be hurt by the fact that they still have a quarterback there that's going to start? Would Ty Simpson go off in his rookie season? I don't know, but it still confuses me why the Rams would choose Ty Simpson in the first round when they have an MVP quarterback. Number 4, Drew Aller. I think it's Aller. His debut with the Steelers was actually probably the most fascinating, of the entire group. He was once viewed as a potential top 5 draft pick coming out of high school, right? Penn State, when he went to Penn State, his career never quite reached the level people expected. He ended up being a 3rd-round pick. He went 10 for 13, 153 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. Great game from him. He looked very, very good just executing Pittsburgh's offense. And the question that I have with him is, can he be consistent the rest of the preseason to build trust? When Aaron Rodgers leaves, can he step in and be that guy? And then the 5th and final one that I find, honestly, to be an underrated story is Cade Klubnik and his debut with the Jets. He was a 4th-round pick out of Clemson by the Jets. He unexpectedly got the start after Geno Smith did not play. Right, he went 5 for 7, 56 yards, led 2 scoring drives. Not like the greatest statistics of all time, but he got them to have 2 scoring drives while starting. He looked poised. He didn't have huge numbers, but he looked poised. He didn't turn the ball over. He made quick decisions, and he didn't look like a 4th-round rookie who wasn't supposed to be starting. Again, didn't look like Patrick Mahomes, didn't look like Bo Nix, my GOAT, but he looked pretty solid. Cade Klubnik, if you don't know, was a QB who was very highly scrutinized as a college quarterback at Clemson. And he turned into being a 4th-rounder who is really just trying to earn his place in the NFL. I'm really curious to see what happens with the Jets with Cade Klubnik. Really curious to see what the Jets end up doing because, again, Geno Smith's not going to be your franchise guy. Is Cade Klubnik going to be able to step up and show them that he actually has what it takes to be a starter in this league? We will see. So again, just to recap, Fernando Mendoza, number 1 pick, massive expectations, franchise QB pressure, right? Carson Beck, 3rd rounder, he has something to prove and could really be a potential steal. Ty Simpson had great statistics, he looks solid, and potential steal, at 13, but also a potential reach, just depending on what they end up doing with Matthew Stafford, probably at the end of the year. Obviously this year, they're going for it all this year. Drew Aller, great stats. He's got huge upside, but he also, needs, again, to show his consistency because of what he looked like in college at Penn State. And then Cade Klubnik, the 4th rounder, right? He's not expected to start immediately. He's not even probably expected to start at all. And he still got an opportunity that came earlier than expected, and he didn't necessarily disappoint. So it'll be very interesting. All these guys, five different players who are really going after starting spots. I'm sure there's guys I'm missing, but those were 5 of the quarterbacks I focused on throughout the preseason in the first couple weeks. Topic number 2. This has nothing to do with the preseason. Let's get into some veteran signings that have been going on around the NFL. The first one that comes to mind is Von Miller, my Broncos GOAT. I have Von Miller stuff back here somewhere. You can look to see if you see him anywhere. I don't know what you can see, but there's some Von Miller stuff back there. Have fun searching for that. It's like Where's Waldo? You can go find, we got Von Miller stuff back there. I feel like Dora. Do you see Von Miller? Anyways, I'm sorry. Cowboys agreed to a deal with 37-year-old Von Miller to play for his 15th NFL season. Last season, he had 9 sacks, played 17 games for the Washington Commanders, and really, it kind of feels like a nostalgia signing. Von Miller is the hometown kid, right? He comes home. He's from DeSoto, Texas. But also on top of that, the Cowboys do need more pass rush depth. I don't think Von Miller is going to come in and be the greatest player of all time for the Cowboys, but he is going to come in and make somewhat of an impact. He doesn't need to be, and this is going to be the key with all these guys that I'm listing, he doesn't need to be a 70 snap per game star, right? He just needs to have a rotational role in obvious passing situations where he can thrive and get some sacks. On top of that, he's also a good veteran presence for a very young defensive front. So the question is, can Von still make a difference? Or is this more of a storyline play to bring the hometown kid home? Keenan Allen also signs with the Colts on a 1-year deal worth up to $8.32 million. The Colts agreed to a deal with 34-year-old Keenan Allen so that he could play for his 14th NFL season. He had 81 catches for 777 yards. That's a lucky number right there. 4 touchdowns, 17 games with the Chargers last season's. He's still productive. Right, but his 9.6 yards per catch was definitely it was career low. So he's not in his prime anymore, but I do think he could make an impact on this Colts team. The Colts need more receiver depth, right? They traded away Michael Pittman Jr. to the Steelers. Alec Pierce is recovering from an ankle injury, and Josh Downs has also been dealing with injury concerns. So Keenan Allen fits well in the Colts. They needed depth. They brought him in. We'll see what he ends up doing with this team. And like I said with Von Miller, he doesn't need to be a 1,000-yard receiver, right? He's a perfect role as a slot type target, especially on third down and also underneath routes. He's again still good veteran presence for this Colts receiving core. And the question is, can he be a reliable wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, and just help stabilize this offense? Or is Indy betting too heavily on an aging receiver to fill a bigger role than he's able to? We'll see where that goes. Third and final one that I'm going to talk about is Najee Harris. The Giants agreed to a 1-year deal with the 28-year-old Najee Harris after he worked out for the team while recovering from an Achilles injury. Harris, he rushed for over 1,000 yards in each of his first 4 seasons with the Steelers, but played just 3 games with the Chargers last season before he tore his Achilles. He was a former first-round pick, 2021 Pro Bowler, career totals of 43, almost 4,400 yards rushing, as well as 28 rushing touchdowns. The Giants already have a crowded room at running back with Cam Scatterboot coming back, Tyrone Tracy Jr., Devin Singletary. The question is, could John Harbaugh, use him as another physical, between the tackles runner and veteran presence as well? The biggest question this season for Najee Harris is, how will his injury affect him? John Harbaugh said, no, Najee Harris isn't 100% or even in football shape yet. So this is something that could be an investment for later on. We'll see how it goes. Is this a smart, low-risk, high-upside signing for the Giants? Or does this injury make him just another piece in an already very confusing running back room? Next situation. Aaron Donald has now worked out with the Rams twice this summer as he considers coming out of retirement. He retired in 2024, but the possibility of playing alongside Myles Garrett when they traded for him this summer has sparked some interest in Aaron Donald. We're talking about a 35-year-old, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year who hasn't played since 2023. If he actually comes back, will it be all hype or will he be the same Aaron Donald that we all know? Aaron Donald plus Myles Garrett is probably the scariest defensive duo we've ever seen. Yeah. I'm just going to leave it at that. They are terrifying. They would be terrifying to go up against. Jaden Daniels is upset with LSU after the school gave his old number 5 jersey to a sophomore cornerback, J. Pickett. Jaden Daniels' representative, they sent LSU a cease and desist, telling the school to stop using his name, image, and likeness. Quite fascinating. Number 5, no, wasn't officially retired, and LSU says Pickett had been promised the number during recruiting before Lane Kiffin took over. Kiffin chose to honor that commitment. Jaden Daniels and his family believed the number would remain part of his legacy, especially after winning the Heisman at LSU. There's also the awkward comparison to Joe Burrow, whose number 9 has remained untouched. This is where NIL gets really interesting, right? Where does a school's ownership of its history end and a player's ownership of his own brand begin? Daniels can control his NIL, but can he really expect LSU to preserve a jersey number forever? Maybe he can. Maybe they can retire it. I don't know. I understand why Daniels feels disrespected, but the cease and desist over a jersey number definitely has taken this to be a much bigger situation than it probably needs to be. I'm really curious to see how long the running Jaden Daniels joke for respecting his number 5 thing goes on. If you are on social media at all, there's literally things everywhere that are talking about like people joking around about being like, I have chosen to only use 4 of my senses in order to honor Jaden Daniels' number 5. Things like that. Like, I'm wearing this number 4 jersey because I couldn't wear a number 5 jersey just, in honor of Jaden Daniels and his. You get the point. Funny situation. Not so funny situation. Jamal Adams. His comeback with the Vikings has been cut short after he suffered a season-ending right knee injury in Minnesota's preseason game against the Giants. This is especially brutal because Jamal Adams was trying to revive his career after several injury-plagued seasons, and he has, tried to carve out a role for himself as a versatile safety linebacker in Brian Flores' offense, in his defense, and that's just going to be cut short. Very unfortunate blow for the Vikings. And then last football thing, and this happened a couple weeks ago. I actually got the chance to go to Broncos training camp. It was a lot of fun. And I went with my mom, my dad, and little sister. And, basically, it's hard to say. I've learned it's hard to say in training camp who looks good, who looks bad, and all of the above. But as far as I know, it looked like Bo Nix looked really good. There was a few pretty sweet catches to Cortland Sutton while we were there when they ran a couple drills. The defense also looked okay. Again, if the offense looked good, the defense isn't going to look as good. Pat Bryant looked great. He's been a big talking point at Broncos training camp, and I was just kind of paying attention to him. He looked great. It looked really high energy, the whole thing. I didn't get to see. These were 2 of the guys I wanted to see. Jalen Waddle and Patrick Surtain, when I went, weren't practicing because of injuries, which is nothing new to report. Like, they're fine. They played in their last preseason game, their last 2 preseason games. They're fine. I just went before preseason started, and they were just whatever. But the highlight of that was actually so at the end of practice that day, they do a thing where they let kids go meet some of the players and get some autographs signed. And actually, it's pretty cool. My little sister, who got to actually experience that, have a ball. Now, this is a ball that I've used for a few years at training camp. I used it when I was littler. And there's a bunch of autographs on it, and I was telling my little sister, because we couldn't be down there with her, and she doesn't know players. And I was like, Erica, you gotta go get this specific person. And it just so happened that Talanoa Hufanga walked by, and she got Talanoa Hufanga's autograph. It's kind of sick. This ball's just gonna sit here now, I think, for the rest of the night. I don't know if that looks good on camera, but we're just gonna roll with it. Okay, that looks better. Denver Broncos. That's basically it. I don't have much else to report from training camp that everyone else hasn't reported yet. Yeah. Let's move on to basketball. Now, I've talked about WNBA a little bit, and we're just going to start with WNBA when it comes to basketball. The Dream took on the Fever in a matchup on last Sunday where we got to see the rivalry of Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark take place. This game did not disappoint as it went to overtime. At the end of regulation, Ryan Howard airballed a game-winning three, which was rebounded by Angel Reese, put back up, missed again, rebounded by Naz Hillman, and missed again as the game was sent to overtime. The Fever did end up winning in overtime, 95-91, behind Caitlin Clark's 26 points, 9 assists, Michaela Timpson, 20 points, 7 rebounds, Alia Boston, 18 points, 14 rebounds, 5 steals, pretty crazy, and Kelsey Mitchell's 20 points. A pretty crazy game. It was one of the WNBA games that was actually really enjoyable to watch, and the big talking point throughout this entire thing was Angel Reese missing that open layup at the end. Quite funny. I don't really have much else to say about it, but I'm sure you saw the gif of Caitlin Clark walking by, just like laughing basically at Angel Reese. I don't think it's anything personal, but I think it's pretty funny. The Dream had some pretty crazy stat lines, led by Alicia Gray, 32 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. And then Angel Reese, 15 points, 14 rebounds. 5 of those were offensive and 6 assists. But bigger news, I think, within the WNBA, and this happened, a month ago, maybe a little less. Kelsey Plum, 5-time All-Star, was traded from the Los Angeles Sparks to the Phoenix Mercury. I literally wrote down the day, August 2nd, just before the WNBA trade deadline. And in return, the Sparks received Monique Akoa-Makani, a 2027 first-round pick, and a 2028 second-round pick. Kelsey Plum gets added to pair with stars like Alyssa Thomas, Kalia Copper, in a win-now push that Phoenix is having. And Plum is going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of this season. The trade for LA really signaled a deeper commitment to a franchise rebuild. They netted a young standout, Akoa-Makani, alongside future draft capital, and they're just looking to rebuild now and get value out of Kelsey Plum. So, cool trade there. It was a name that I was familiar with. Kelsey Plum, fan of her. Yeah. Now, let's get into one of the bigger situations going on instead of just popping through all these different things. There's 2 of these I'm going to talk about. The first one is Kawhi Leonard. A lot going on with Kawhi Leonard. The Clippers and Raptors agreed to a blockbuster deal that would send Kawhi back to Toronto, where he won the 2019 NBA Finals with. But the trade still hasn't been finalized because the NBA's investigation into the Clippers and into Kawhi Leonard alleged salary cap, what's the word? Circumvention, I think is the word. It's ongoing, right? Which is, this investigation has been going on for almost a year. And so the question is, what exactly is the NBA investigating? The original issue centered around a reported $28 million endorsement deal between Leonard and Aspiration, who is the company that had ties to Clippers owner Steve Ballmer. The allegation is essentially that this wasn't a normal endorsement deal, but potentially a way for the Clippers to get additional money to Leonard outside of his NBA contract to draw him to the Clippers. The Clippers have denied that they funneled any money to Leonard and have maintained that Ballmer was himself a victim of fraud involving Aspiration. Kind of random details, but whatever. But now there's another layer, right? The reports also say that Kawhi had a multi-million-dollar deal with Daktronics, which is the company that manufactures the Clippers' Intuit Dome scoreboard. That's what has made the investigation even more complicated and ultimately made this trade pause. So why is this trade being held up? This is the crazy part, right? Toronto and LA have basically agreed on the basketball side of the deal. But the NBA doesn't want to finalize it until the investigation is resolved. So, you have Kawhi Leonard potentially going back to the team where he won a championship, Toronto preparing for him, the Clippers preparing to move forward without him, and everyone essentially just waiting on the NBA to decide what they're going to do about this situation. If the Clippers are guilty, how bad could this get? This is where the story becomes much bigger than Kawhi, right? The NBA has to protect the salary cap. They need to make sure there's no loopholes in order to funnel top talent more money so that they just go to different teams, using money that isn't from the salary cap. If wealthy owners can simply find creative ways to pay players additional money outside of the cap, then the entire system becomes completely meaningless. And the Clippers aren't dealing with some minor technicality if these allegations are proven, right? The previous major salary cap, the case that involved Minnesota and Joe Smith, resulted in serious penalties, including draft pick losses. So the NBA potentially has to decide, how severely do we punish the Clippers if they actually did what they think they did? Do you fine them? Do you take draft picks away? Do you suspend people? Do you have contract consequences? Do you have some combination of all of those? What about Kawhi? This might be the most interesting part of the whole situation, right? If the Clippers are found guilty of trying to circumvent the cap for Kawhi, does Kawhi deserve punishment? Or is this primarily an organizational issue? Players have agents, they have lawyers, and they have teams negotiating these contracts. But at the same time, Kawhi isn't some random player who had no idea where this money was coming from. If Kawhi knowingly participated, and this is where the debate and the tension comes. If Kawhi knowingly participated in a scheme to get money outside of the salary cap, should the NBA punish Kawhi just as much as they should punish the Clippers? Now you got to think about it from Toronto's side, right? Toronto fans have basically been waiting for this reunion since they won the finals. Kawhi's return would be incredibly symbolic. He won the 2019 finals. He was the finals MVP of that team. Honestly, that was probably the greatest season in franchise history. And now potentially he is coming back 7 years after that. Kawhi, he's reportedly expressed confidence that the trade will eventually go through. But until the NBA finishes the investigation, nobody really knows when or even exactly how the situation gets resolved. But let's talk about the bigger conversation, right? Does the salary cap actually work if billionaires can find loopholes? What's the difference between legitimate endorsement money and disguised salary? How much responsibility should an owner have for what his team does behind the scenes? Does the NBA need harsher penalties to prevent this type of thing from happening again? And does this change how players and teams negotiate contracts in the future? Sports are built around rules. Right? Every team is supposed to operate under the same salary cap restrictions within the NBA. But when there's the temptation to bend the rules to get a superstar, how far are you willing to go to do that? And does winning justify crossing that line? If the NBA proves the Clippers intentionally circumvented the salary cap to get Kawhi, what punishment would actually be fair, and should Kawhi be punished too? This is a situation that is really just intense right now. There was a report that came out again that said that the NBA found no proof of this happening, but still, come on now. This is still a pretty big thing. Now let's get into another thing that just happened, and this is going to be more personal to home, right? Peyton Watson. I just moved on from Kawhi. Those are all the questions you should think about. Let's talk about another thing that happened within the NBA. Peyton Watson being traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Here's the deal. Peyton Watson, Cavs receive Peyton Watson and Cam Whitmore. This is a 5-team deal. The Nuggets receive a 2031 unprotected Cavs first-round pick, a 2032 Kings second-rounder, and then Julian Reese, Angel Reese's brother, who is going to be waived. At least that's what the report is right now. The Clippers snuck themselves into this deal and stole Max Strus from the Cavs. The Wizards received Trey Mann and a 2027 Clippers second-round pick. And then in order for the mechanics to work, Dennis Schroeder was traded to the Hornets from the Cavs, I believe from the Cavs, in order just to make this entire trade work. He was traded a while ago, so that wasn't a huge deal. But all of that has been written on paper. It's official. Done. Peyton Watson, like I said, has been traded from the Denver Nuggets to the Cavs, and both fan bases are actually completely split on whether or not this was a good move or not. For the Cavs, they got a young, athletic defensive wing who has incredible upside. When Nikola Jokic went down with an injury last season, Peyton Watson was the guy that stepped up and made things happen to keep them in the running in those top 4 seats. For the Cavs, they perfectly fill out their roster with Peyton Watson to make their lineup look like James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, Peyton Watson, Jarrett Allen, or Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen. The team is kind of gross. They look really good. But the side of the Cavs fan base that doesn't like it is what the second half of this trade looks like. First of all, they traded away Max Strus, who, as well as a 2031 unprotected first-round pick, which is a huge risk considering the guy they are trading for is also a risk. But the part the Cavs fans are hesitant about is the contract extension they gave Peyton Watson. 4 years, $88 million. That's an expensive contract for a guy who hasn't quite proven himself fully yet, especially considering the salary rules that the NBA is putting in place with the aprons and things like that. This contract will either be really, really high quality. It'll be a really high quality contract that works out perfectly, right? Or it'll completely bite them in the butts and the risk doesn't pay off at all. But from a current perspective, the Cavs made a great move to put them right at the top of a few teams who are competing in the Eastern Conference. I love it for the Cavs. For the Nuggets, they had 5 options. Let's just say it like that. First option was Peyton Watson signs for what he wants for about $25 million a year with a different team, which, again, was very unlikely, just straight up. He just left and the Nuggets got nothing. Second option is Peyton Watson signs for the qualifying offer. Watson would end up playing for the season, then hits unrestricted free agency. There's a lot of issues with that. The fact that he would even, if he takes the qualifying offer, there's a chance that he falls off a cliff, doesn't get his contract later, and then the Nuggets, again, also continue to risk losing him for nothing. Number 3 is Denver sign and trades him somewhere, which is exactly what they chose to do, sending him to Cleveland, which was the most rumored from the jump. They ended up taking the option where they sign and trade him to Cleveland, like I said, getting those things back. The fourth option that they had was Denver trading away key pieces like Aaron Gordon or Cam Johnson in order to re-sign Watson and avoid paying more for the luxury tax. Didn't seem like the right option. It seemed like they were prioritizing Cam Johnson, Spencer Jones together instead of Peyton Watson, which is fair. And then the fifth and final option was Denver re-signs Watson and pays the gigantic tax bill. Like I said, they took the option where they signed and traded to Cleveland. I think this trade is understandably a split perspective from Nuggets fans. On the one hand, you disappointed last season by getting beat in the first round by the Timberwolves, and so far this offseason have made very minor moves that just don't seem like they're improving overall. Marvin Bagley, Alpha Diallo, Tyus Jones, Spencer Jones, letting Bruce Brown, Jonas Valanciunas, and Tim Hardaway walk, and now trading away Peyton Watson are all moves that don't seem to be moving Denver in the right direction on a year where Nikola Jokic is still in his prime and is going to be a free agent at the end of the year. It makes sense that some Denver fans are upset about the trade as they lost a young, athletic defensive wing who had significant upside. But on the flip side, Rich Paul essentially explained on a podcast that part of the reason he sat out of the playoffs was because of his contract situation. It seems like the Nuggets were valuing keeping their main core together rather than paying an unproven young guy in Watson. I tend to have the opinion that the Nuggets made the right move as much as it hurts, and I'm a Nuggets fan, right? I'm wearing the Nuggets jersey. Sure, maybe they'll regret it in the future. Sure, maybe Peyton Watson will become a superstar one day. But it also could very well be a situation where they avoided continuing being in the depths of cap problems, right? It's a similar situation kind of to what they did with Zeke Naji when they re-signed him. They re-signed Zeke Naji and then immediately regretted it, and now they can't get off of his contract. You can't just re-sign an unproven guy multiple times in a row. And the other argument was Christian Brown. The fact that you re-signed Christian Brown and not Peyton Watson when they're in the same draft class. Christian Brown proved himself for a year. They signed him for a huge contract and then didn't play as well the year after that. Makes sense why Peyton Watson's upset, but it makes sense why the Nuggets also don't want to pay it. Taking that risk. Now, on top of this, the Nuggets pivoted. They signed DeMar DeRozan, which is more than likely going to round out the Nuggets' main roster pieces, unless they make a couple minor moves here and there. Their lineup now looks like Jamal Murray, Christian Brown, Cam Johnson, Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic. The same starting 5 they had last season. And their bench looks like Tyus Jones, DeMar DeRozan, Julian Strawther, which we'll see how they end up playing that. Alpha Diallo, Spencer Jones, and Marvin Bagley. It's not a terrible bench. And really the question is, will DeMar DeRozan come off the bench? Or will he start and make that offense ridiculous? I think that with DeMar DeRozan signing with the Nuggets, I think he's going to come off the bench, be a really good scoring threat that the Nuggets have never really had in the last however long it's been. I think DeMar DeRozan could be a guy that averages a consistent 18 to 20 points per game every single game off the bench and really give the Nuggets a spark. He'll probably still get starter minutes, but we'll see how it goes. I think it's a good signing. We'll see, again, what ends up happening. And then final thing with the NBA, Klay Thompson was bought out by the Mavericks and signed with the Miami Heat. The Heat look better now. Their starting five is Davion Mitchell, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Bam Adebayo. It's a solid starting five. We'll see what ends up happening with Klay. Is he washed or is he not? I don't know. Now, let's move into baseball here. The most interesting thing that's happened recently that I wrote down was Joshua Baez making his debut with the Cardinals. For those of you who did not hear, there was a 23-year-old by the name of Joshua Baez who made his MLB debut for the Cardinals against the Cubs at Wrigley Field. And he took full advantage of this moment, right? The very first pitch he saw went 450 feet into dead center field. And the next two at-bats he had in this game both went over the fence as well. Joshua Baez is now the first player in MLB history to hit a home run on each of his first 3 career plate appearances. That's unreal. Joshua Baez was already the Cardinals' number 3 prospect, and he had hit 34 home runs in AAA before he got called up. Baez, he has power like we've never seen before. This wasn't just a random hot debut, right? This guy's been grinding through the minor leagues for years, and suddenly he walks into Wrigley Field to make baseball history. The question is this a one-game story, or will Joshua Baez be the next big star in baseball, one of the next big stars in baseball? We will see. We can get into the sadder stuff. Tommy John, who most people know as the injury that happens for pitchers. No, this is a real guy. Tommy John passes away at the age of 83, ending a remarkable 26-year MLB career that often gets overshadowed by the surgery that bears his name, like I said. He went 288 and 231 with a 3.34 ERA in his career. He made 4 All-Star teams, pitched for the Cleveland Indians, Chicago White Sox, LA Dodgers, New York Yankees, California Angels, and the Oakland Athletics. His defining moment came in, which this is sad. His defining moment came in 1974 when he tore the UCL, I think it's this, in his elbow, while having one of the best seasons of his career. There was an experimental ligament replacement surgery on him, which we now know as Tommy John surgery. He returned to play in 1976. Fun fact, Tommy John actually won more games after the surgery than before it. And he went on to pitch another 14 years and have multiple 20-win seasons. On top of all of this, Tommy John was also a devout Christian who leaned heavily on his faith during a grueling rehabilitation process. He often spoke out about the Bible verse Luke 1:37, which says, "For with God nothing shall be impossible." He used this verse daily as a mental and spiritual anchor to rebuild his arm. Tommy John wasn't just the namesake of an injury. He was a really good pitcher whose comeback completely changed baseball and sports medicine forever. Thank you, Tommy John, for what you've done for baseball. Look forward to seeing you in the afterlife, big dog. Now, going back, we're going to stick with the Christian theme. There was an all-time mound visit, probably the greatest mound visit I've ever seen, that took place in Little League Baseball. In case you missed it, there was a coach in the Little League Baseball who had a pretty unique mound visit. He said to his pitcher, I'm going to quote this. Maybe I'll get the actual audio from it somewhere. I'm just going to quote it for now. "I've known you since you were 8. Nobody sees all the labor that you put in. Remember Zacchaeus in the Bible. Someone planted that tree 30, 40 years prior so he could climb up into it. Salvation. We're talking salvation. This is a baseball game. If you walk the next 5 batters, Jesus is still Lord. If you strike out the next 5 guys, guess what? Jesus is still Lord. I love you. Have some fun, okay?" Now, whether this approach worked or not, I genuinely believe this could go down as the literal most impactful quote we've ever seen, or not we've ever seen, that this kid will ever hear in his life. But why was it so great? First, it lifted a pressure off of him that he probably didn't realize was on him. Clearly, the pitcher was down on himself and putting a lot of pressure on himself to perform well. And clearly, this had already been a major part of the kid's personality. The coach knows him well. The coach was not pressuring him to have the greatest performance of his life. And he was only doing that to himself. Second, it gave him a sense of the real importance of what he was doing. The coach was able to deliver the message that this game means nothing in the grand scheme of things. He's still going to have his entire life ahead of him. He's still going to have his teammates. He's still going to have, he's going to be able to have fun playing some baseball. Sure, the performance maybe wasn't exactly what he wanted it to be, but this coach so perfectly delivered the fact that this is literally just a baseball game. It may mean everything in the moment, but in reality, all it is a baseball game that was created to bring joy to those who love the game. Third and finally, the ending when he gave him the "I love you, have some fun." It gave the player a sense of assurance that he wasn't going to be hated, he wasn't going to be punished, he wasn't going to be yelled at, he wasn't going to be made fun of or benched because of what the pitcher believes to be a bad performance. Young athletes need coaches like this. You never realize the importance of having a coach who makes it known he is always on your side. We've all had that coach that screams at us, that rips us apart. It coaches us hard, punishes us if we make mistakes. This isn't to say that we don't, that some people don't need coaches like that. I loved coaches like that. It was really helpful to me because there's plenty of people who need and want it, right? But what's more important when it comes to this type of situation specifically is that the coach knew this player so well that he was able to handle the situation in such a unique way that clearly helped the kid out mentally. I'm going to probably do an episode at some point in time about coaches and coaching and things like that. But I felt like this was a good time to mention how important coaching can be within the sports world, especially in youth sports. Now, let's fly through the rest. We got one giant segment towards the end, and the rest is going to be pretty random. We're going to get out of the main sports guys. Cristiano Ronaldo says it might be his last season. Breaking news. Cristiano Ronaldo, who is now 41 years old, says the 2026-27 season will probably be his final year of professional football / soccer, whatever you want to call it. He currently plays for Al Nassr. I don't know who that is. I'm going to be honest. And his contract runs through next summer. Right? He's sitting at he's at 976 career goals, meaning he's only 24 away from 1,000. So there's a very real chance we're watching him chase one of the biggest individual milestones in soccer history during his final season. He has 5 Ballon d'Ors, 5 Champions League titles, major trophies in England, Spain, and Italy, and now potentially his final chapter after 25 years as a professional is right now. Ronaldo has been obsessed with his legacy and longevity. Now he's basically saying, I've done enough. It's time to enjoy what I've built. If Ronaldo actually retires this season, is he the greatest soccer player of all time, or does Messi still have the edge? I think it's Messi, and I did a whole giant segment about that early on in the podcast. Go listen. Move on to the PGA Tour. Scottie Scheffler is back after going nearly 7 months without a win. The world number one dominated in the field at TPC Southwind, finishing 17 under and winning by 8 strokes. The drought was strange because he wasn't playing badly. He had 5 runner-up finishes during the stretch, so it wasn't like Scheffler suddenly became an average golfer. He just couldn't finish the job. Scheffler shot 9 under 61, tying the course record and taking control of the tournament. The FedEx Cup playoffs are starting, and Scheffler is now entering the most important part of the season with his confidence seemingly back. We're so used to Scottie winning that 7 months without a victory. We're so used to Scottie winning. That 7 months without a victory felt like a drought, which says a lot about how ridiculous his standards have become. Was this just Scheffler finally getting a win, or are we about to see him go on another dominant run through the FedEx Cup playoffs? Interesting stuff. Let's move on to swimming. Yeah, I bet you didn't think I was going to talk about swimming today. Lonnie Pallister, I think is how you say it, ends Katie Ledecky's 14-year unbeaten reign in the 800-meter freestyle. Australian Pallister stunned Ledecky at the Pan Pacific Championships, winning the 800-meter freestyle in 8 minutes, 6 seconds, and 1/10 of a second to end Katie Ledecky's streak of 13 straight international gold medals in the event. Katie Ledecky has basically owned this event since winning Olympic gold as a 15-year-old in 2012. She won the event at 4 straight Olympics and had never lost it at a major international meet. This wasn't something that was completely out of nowhere, though. She already had pushed Ledecky at the 2025 World Championships and beat her earlier in the 400-meter freestyle. Is this simply one of the greatest swimmers ever finally losing an event? Or are we watching the beginning of the next era of women's distance swimming? Women's Olympic swimming, if you will. Does Ledecky get the 800 meters back before the 2028 Olympics, or has Pallister officially taken the crown? We'll see in 2028 as the Olympics moves to the USA. Last random thing, and then we'll get into my big ol' segment. Ty Gibbs is going to honor Kyle Busch's M&M car at Bristol. Ty Gibbs will drive the number 54 Toyota in Kyle Busch's iconic M&M's paint scheme at the Bristol Night Race on September 19th. The scheme will feature moments from Busch's career and is a tribute following his death earlier this year. Kyle Busch absolutely dominated there, winning 8 Cup Series races and 22 times across NASCAR's 3 National Series. Bristol was one of his favorite tracks, making this feel much more personal than just a throwback paint scheme. Gibbs is driving for Joe Gibbs Racing, the team Busch spent 15 seasons with, and the M&M's colors were such a huge part of Busch's identity that he won 47 NASCAR races in that car. This is a cool example of how NASCAR is using its history and relationships to keep a driver's legacy alive. It also gives Ty Gibbs the opportunity to honor someone who is such a major part of the JG family. How cool would it be if Ty Gibbs could win at Bristol? I'm not a NASCAR fan, but I think it'd be cool for the storyline. Now, how could I possibly end this episode without mentioning the retirement of an all-time NBA player? How could I possibly skip over that? How could I possibly forget that one of my personal favorite players of all time retired? Oh, trust me, I did not. See this right here? See this right here? No, look at this. Look at this. I don't even know if you can see. Boom. Hopefully you can see that. If not, if you're listening on Spotify or whatever, I'm wearing a Russell Westbrook Nuggets jersey. What comes to mind when you hear the name Russell Westbrook? What's the first thing that comes to your head? Is it the dunks? Is it the MVP? Is it the emotion? Is it the missed shots? Is it the turnovers? Is it the fashion? Is it his memorable post-game interviews? When I think of Russell Westbrook, I think of the most interesting athlete of my generation, and I don't think you have to believe Russell Westbrook was perfect in order to appreciate Russell Westbrook. We're going to go year by year and see what this man accomplished. 2008-2009, Russell Westbrook gets drafted 4th overall in the 2008 draft by the Seattle Supersonics, who became the Oklahoma City Thunder. He's coming into a league alongside Kevin Durant, but nobody really knows what Russell Westbrook would become. He's athletic, he's fast, he's explosive, but he's raw. In his rookie season, he averages about 15 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. You can already see the athlete, but not the superstar that is to come. 2009-2010, Russell Westbrook becomes a starter, and the people start to realize this dude might be a really, really good player. 16.1 points, 8 assists, 4.9 rebounds is what he averaged in year 2. The Thunder make the playoffs and push the eventual champions Kobe Bryant and the LA Lakers to 6 games. This is the beginning of the young OKC Thunder. Year 3, Russell Westbrook is now seen as a star. 21.9 points, 8.2 assists, 5.5 rebounds. Oklahoma City makes the Western Conference Finals. Westbrook is no longer Kevin Durant's teammate. He's becoming a legitimate second superstar to pair with KD. And this is when the athleticism is becoming terrifying. This guy's a 6'3" point guard who's attacking the basket like he's 6'8" like LeBron James. Year 4, arguably the most important year of Russ's career. Westbrook averages roughly 24 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds, but more importantly, the Thunder make the NBA Finals. Think about how young this team was. Durant, Westbrook, Harden, Ibaka. They were kids, and somehow they're in the NBA Finals going against one of the greatest trios ever formed, LeBron, D-Wade, and Bosh. Yes, they lost to Miami in the finals, but this is the moment where Russell Westbrook becomes one of the biggest names in basketball. And on top of this, he won Olympic gold with Team USA that summer. Year 5, Russell Westbrook's stats are still soaring higher every single season. 23 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds. And the Thunder are one of the best teams in the league yet again. But then the playoffs happen. And Russell Westbrook tears his meniscus, taking him out for the remainder of the season. He undergoes surgery and the Thunder lose to the Memphis Grizzlies in the second round. This becomes an early example of something that follows Westbrook throughout his career. Year 6, Russ comes back, and not only does he come back, but he continues doing Russ things. 22 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds, and the Thunder, alongside Kevin Durant, to one of the biggest regular season teams of their era with 59 wins. Russ makes his second All-Star team, and he becomes more efficient, more experienced, and most of all, more confident. Year 7, the injury plague hits OKC again, but this time it's Kevin Durant. Russell Westbrook is tasked with carrying Oklahoma City. This is where we get one of the first truly insane individual stretches of his career. 28 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, an All-Star Game MVP, but the Thunder still, even with all that, missed the playoffs. This is when people begin asking, is Westbrook actually the best player on this team? Year 8, this is the season where we're starting to get a glimpse of what is coming. Russ averages 23.5 points, 10 assists, 8 rebounds, makes the All-Star team again, wins All-Star MVP again, and the Thunder make their way to the Western Conference Finals yet again. They're up 3-1 on Golden State, and it looks like they're going to the NBA Finals, but they lose 3 in a row and get bounced in the Western Conference Finals. This season instantly becomes one of the biggest what-if moments of Russ's career. If OKC finishes that series, maybe everything changes. Maybe Durant sticks around. Maybe the Thunder win the championship. Maybe Westbrook's career looks entirely different. But no, Durant heads to the Warriors, and Russell Westbrook truly becomes the guy. Year 8. This is it. This is the season where Russell Westbrook gets to show who he is. The Thunder are expected to fall apart, but instead of that happening, Westbrook tells the fans, nope. He averages career-high numbers at 31.6 points, 10.7 rebounds, and 10.4 assists, not in one game, but on average for an entire season. Westbrook breaks Oscar Robinson's single-season record for most triple-doubles by having 42 of his own. That's over half of games that exist in a regular season. He ends up winning Most Valuable Player. This is one of the most ridiculous individual seasons in the history of basketball. And this is the year that defines Russell Westbrook, not because of his perfection, but because nobody could watch this and say he was not incredible. Year 9, this is where Russ gets crazier. People thought the triple-double season was a fluke. No, again, Russ averages 25.4 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists to average a triple-double for a second season in a row. He wins his second straight scoring title, and the Thunder add Paul George and Carmelo Anthony. Everybody expects them to contend, and they lose in the first round. Now the criticism starts to get loud. Can Westbrook's individual greatness translate to team success? Year 10, he's in double digits. Russ does it again. He averages 23 points, 11 rebounds, and 11 assists on his path to 3 straight triple-double seasons. That's insanity. He passes Wilt Chamberlain on the all-time triple-double list, but OKC loses in the first round yet again. Paul George gets traded, and all of a sudden, the kid who has been all in for the Thunder since they drafted him 10 seasons ago is traded away to the Houston Rockets. Russ gets a new start. This is year 11. Russ gets a new start in a new home. He's playing with James Harden for the second time in his career. But this time, both of them have MPs under their belt. Russ averages 27 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, and for stretches looks unstoppable. The Rockets go small ball. Russ attacks the basket constantly, and he's one of the most dangerous downhill players in basketball. But Houston loses in the second round, and after only one season, Russell Westbrook is traded again. Year 12, now he's playing for the Washington Wizards. Westbrook continues his greatness by averaging a triple-double. 22 points, 12 rebounds, 12 assists, and this is the 4th time in 5 seasons that he's averaged a triple-double in a season. On top of this, Russell Westbrook passes Oscar Robertson for the most career triple-doubles in NBA history. This might be the most overlooked accomplishment of his career. It's the biggest accomplishment, and it's one that it's a record that stood for decades before Russ broke it. Year 13 now becomes a chapter everybody remembers, and not in a good way. Russell Westbrook goes to the Lakers. LeBron, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook. On paper, this is insane. But in reality, it fails horribly. Russ averages about 18.5 points, 7.5 rebounds, 7 assists, and the Lakers miss the playoffs entirely. This is probably the most difficult year of his career. The criticism is louder than the compliments, and the nickname West Brick becomes a major part of the conversation. And suddenly, people are talking about Russ like he's washed. Year 14, Russell Westbrook begins the year with the Lakers, but eventually is traded to the Jazz and ends up with the Clippers. The Clippers version of Russ is interesting because he's no longer asked to be the franchise player. He's a veteran. He's coming off the bench and he's bringing energy. Russ is trying to figure out what this version of himself looks like. Year 15. Now, he's still with the Clippers. Russell Westbrook is no longer trying to prove that he's an MVP. He's trying to contribute. He's still explosive. He still has unlimited energy and still competitive and relentless, but has a new role. It took him a couple seasons, but Russ finally accepted that he was not the player he was in 2017. Year, I believe, 16. Russell Westbrook joins the Denver Nuggets right here. Got this jersey. I was pumped when this happened, by the way. He's playing alongside the best player in the world, Nikola Jokic, and is not expected to carry the offense in any way. This is a completely different style of basketball that Russ has never had to play. He's expected only to bring energy, make plays, and be tough. In the playoffs, Russ had some key moments. Denver eventually ends up losing in the Western Conference Finals, and there's something poetic about Russell Westbrook playing for Denver while his old team is still part of the story. Year 17, Sacramento, Russell Westbrook plays 64 games. He started 58 of those 64 and averages about 15 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists in what we believed to be a gap year in Russ's story. He's not MVP anymore. He's not OKC Russ. He's not Houston Russ. He's not Lakers Russ. He's not Wizards Russ. He's not Nuggets Russ. He's not Clippers Russ. This year's Russell Westbrook is different. He's happy. He's enjoying playing basketball. No, the Kings aren't winning, but it's clear there's been a mindset change. Russell Westbrook still has the same energy, still has speed, still has athleticism, but this time around, Russell Westbrook just looks happy to be there. He's veteran Russ, the guy who's teaching the young guys, sharing his knowledge, and smiling at every single game. Russ becomes a free agent at the end of the season. The question of the offseason for this man is, can Russ contribute to a championship quality team in hopes of getting him a ring? At least that's what we thought the question would be. August 12th, 2026, Russell Westbrook posts on social media saying, "Sometimes you don't even know when you've already watched the end. You had to be there, and now it's over." Russell Westbrook has officially retired from the game of basketball, a man who has the craziest fans, the craziest haters, and everything in between. Russell Westbrook has taken his talents to his family. The basketball world could not be more grateful for everything he's done for the game. From the jump, Russell Westbrook brought a type of confidence that has never before been seen in the NBA or even in sports. From being the 8th overall pick to winning an MVP, to his unnecessary technical fouls for hanging on the rim, to talking trash to the crowd even when there was no crowd, to dunking on all-time great rim protectors, to his countless memorable interviews, to breaking records we never thought would be broken, to now retiring as the triple-double king, to 18 years of unforgettable basketball. All I have to say is thank you, Russell Westbrook, for everything you've done for the NBA. We've talked about a lot tonight, from rookie QBs making their first impressions, to Kawhi's bizarre situation, to legends like Cristiano Ronaldo, Katie Ledecky potentially entering the final chapters of their career, to Russell Westbrook finishing his all-time great career. And that's what makes sports so fun. Right? You never know what story is going to happen next. You never know what is going to happen after this. That's why I feel like these random sports yap videos are necessary for a sports podcast. You've got to stay up to date on the randomness of sports. We're seeing a lot of new beginnings and endings at the same time. Rookie QBs are starting their NFL journeys. Joshua Baez just made baseball history in his first game. Ty Gibbs is honoring Kyle Busch's legacy. Ronaldo could be entering his final season. Ledecky finally lost an event she's dominated for 14 years. Tommy John passes away. Russell Westbrook retires. Sports are constantly changing. Players come in, players leave, records get broken, legends retired, and the story remains the same. That's what makes sports bigger than just wins and losses. We're watching people's careers, legacies, failures, comebacks, and dreams unfold in real time. Years from now, which story from everything we talked about tonight are we going to look back on and say, that was a moment that where everything changed? Or maybe we're going to look back on it and say, that was a moment that I forgot about. Or that was a moment that literally had no impact on anything. And that's going to do it for today's Sports Yap. A lot happened this week and last week and the week before that, the week before that. And somehow I'm sure by the time that we're back here next week, half of this list is going to feel completely irrelevant because that's just how sports work. But with that, thank you for listening to the Clayball Podcast. See ya!